Hello.
Hey, gentlemen.
Hello, how are you?
I'm great. How y'all doing today?
Good, thanks.
Happy
Doing
Thursday.
well. How are you?
Well, thank you. How did it go for you today, Brian? You had your second shot today.
No, it's tomorrow, actually, but I'm fighting a bit of a cold today, so hopefully I'm better by tomorrow.
Yeah, hopefully.
Just in
Hopefully.
time
Ken,
so
how's
you
it going
can.
for you? You doing all right, Ken?
I am doing all right. Can't seriously complain. Besides, who would really listen?
You gentlemen seem like y'all been like working hard today, right? No?
Always working hard.
Okay.
Okay, so the way this will go, we're recording now, just so I don't forget, but I'll crop the meeting when we post it to the website. But basically, Ken, you just sort of introduce the topic, and we'll be on this slide here. And I'll have it in presentation mode. And then I can move over to this slide. Just give me a head nod or next slide or something. And I'll move over to this slide. And Patrese, I think Ken will just do, a quick introduction to, our esteemed presenter today or something like that. Is there anything you'd like Ken to say on your behalf before we turn it over to you?
She sent it to me. I cut
Oh.
it back a little bit, Patrese. So I'll just say a couple of things and then just turn it over to you.
Yeah, and we can have this slide up when you're doing that, Ken. So
Yeah.
you can see the
So
full
I'll just do the
picture.
one slide, and then as I start to introduce her, just flip the slide.
Got it. Okay. All right. And then we'll get into the symmetry. So you'll give me a little gentle heads up to launch the simulation.
Right.
Which I'll get
Can you
into
go back,
now.
Brian? I'm looking for the second slide.
Yeah, I moved that only to the end. I really felt like it was way too salesy this early. I don't want to lose people.
All right.
So I think what you should do is, tease the free offer, and then we'll discuss it in more detail at the end.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yep. Okay, bear with me for 1 minute here. I'm just gonna pull up the sim. Oh, I'm struggling with this cold. I have to get a tissue here. Okay, so I will have the sim. Why am I having an issue right now? Of course. Okay, this is the sim, right? So I will have this queued up, and then, excuse me, Teresa, as we discussed, you'll just give me a gentle nod as to when you want me to progress the sim. And then as we get to a decision point, we either have polls in Zoom that we can set up. So I've set up a test poll here that I think I can launch. So you guys should see that. And as you're completing an answer or choosing an answer, I'll see the percentages, so I can let you know, Patrese, what the winner was, and then you can opt to ask for people to enter information into the chat. For example, would you mind telling us why you picked that answer? Or if you prefer not to do a poll, you can ask them to enter information into the chat, and I'll monitor that as well. So we have two options. And when we get to a decision point, if you need help, I'll help you organize that.
Brian,
Just-
can you redo the poll a little bit?
What do you need?
I just would change it, instead of what is the best option, just which option would you choose? Because we're not say asking them what is the best option, right? I mean, we're asking them what they would want to do. It doesn't really matter if you can't, if it's too involved. I forget what it's like to, if you wanted to create a new poll, but it's just a leading question.
Okay, I think I can change that. Bear with me here a minute. Which option would you choose? I don't know if I got them all. Let's see here. Option to choose. Option to choose. All right, I think I got them all now. All right, I mean, we can't really test them, but
Sure, it's fine. Well, it's fine either way. I just, it's just a little bit, this way we don't
yeah,
lead them down if we don't need to.
okay. Okay, and then finishing up, so, excuse me, at about the hour mark, we'll look for a natural stopping point, probably the next decision point. And then we'll turn it over to Ken Ken, right now we have all these slides in, so you can feel free to speed through or let me know which slide to jump to. And then we'll turn it back over to Patrese to talk about her free offer and then end the session, basically.
So ideally, when would you, I guess, are you going to gauge where things are by how many people drop at the hour?
Yes, we haven't really had a problem with people dropping.
Right. So then it would be okay just to get a thought out and then basically get to. Are we making any offers on this one, or?
No, well, our offers will come through the email, post-event email.
And Brian, if the PowerPoint, the slide, the last one I've given to you, to decrease, or that is to minimize some perspective of sales, you can also eliminate the words valued at.
That's okay. I think at this point, it's okay to make an offer. I just thought we want people to really feel like they're getting something out of the webinar versus being pitched to buy something, or even if it's free. So I think the slide's fine as is. I just think it's better at the end. So yeah.
Sounds good.
That's
Question
all.
about the meeting groups. In a couple of the slides where there's an opportunity to poll, I might want to have the participants to go into a meeting group.
Yes,
So
I missed that. Yeah, absolutely. Just let me know and I'll start a meeting group. No problem.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and you should decide also how long you want them in there for.
It's a great question. What were we in the last one? Was it less than 5 minutes, right? Or 3 minutes? I don't recall. the one that I participated.
I
or
think David's here. I'll let him in. I think he does about 3 minutes. So speak of the devil. See if
And
he
you
can-
could probably just tell Brian, you know, just say, and let's go into a breakout room for 3 minutes. And this
Yeah.
way.
David, we're throwing you right into the fire here. How you doing?
Great.
You usually do the breakout rooms for about 3 minutes. Does that sound right?
Yeah, between 2 and 8 minutes.
Okay.
So, and it's based on, you know, you as the facilitator and the feel in the room.
Okay,
Got
right
it.
now we'll plan to do 3 minutes.
The only thing I want to remind you of is when you close all the rooms, there's usually a 30 or 60-second, you know, lag time.
Yep.
You're going to knock it out of the park, Dr. Mason.
Excuse me one second, everyone.
Thank you so much. David, today I aim to be the sage on the stage and be the guide on the side.
I love it.
Have you ever heard anybody say that?
Well, I mean, as leaders, you know, when we realize it's not about us, it's about the participants, you know, I mean, it kind of changes how you facilitate things.
Yeah, I agree.
Ken, how many people are you anticipating today?
It looks like we had 49 signed up.
I got a lot of declines on the invite, so a lot of people are very excited for the recording. But you know, as you can imagine, this is a tough month for people on a webinar. So it's a good first one for us to do together with Patrese, and we'll do some more.
What does that mean, a decline?
So after someone registers, I send them a calendar invite, and they decline the meeting, which means which basically means they only want the recording. So
You are so, he is so sneaky.
what do you mean?
No, I'm kidding. But that's great that we're processing that information. I mean, if I didn't think through that manifestation of that they register and then they decline, which makes it obvious that they did it because they're interested in it, they want the recording, and they're not going to commit to being there. Yeah, okay. How many accepts were there?
Let's see here. $30 yeses out of 73, which includes all the school sims people, Patrese, and then Rosie Ladd from Albany sent me a list of 10 people last minute to include. So I don't know if they'll show up or not, but they're good.
The 73 includes those 10.
Yeah, it might be 6 actually, not 10, but it was a chunk.
Ryan, if I could, would you go to the slides, please?
Sure.
This is the slide I will be on when I am introducing myself. Is that correct?
That's correct. So actually, as soon as Ken starts talking about you, I will move to this slide.
Okay. And it's there that you will remain on that slide while I am referencing myself, correct?
That is correct, if that's okay.
Of course it's okay, sure. And then I'll let them know that we're going to begin, and then you're going to go to the first slide that we have on the, I think it was the PAC, the PDK.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Mm.
Great.
Hopefully I don't screw this up.
Well, we're only human. I mean, how could we screw it up? All we can do is, you know, we just say that, you know, we're going to work through it, and we work through it, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Brian, you taking anything?
I took like Alka-Seltzer cold and flu last night. I feel pretty good except for this runny nose. It's driving me nuts.
Feel better.
Yeah, I'm sorry you're not feeling well.
It's not COVID, so that's good.
That it is. Anybody else have it in the house?
My daughter, we think we got it from one of her friends who apparently wasn't feeling well. We were all together at the lake house this weekend. So unfortunately it rained, so we were all trapped in the house most of the time. Yeah, so it's been making its way through the group.
Well, it's the weekend again, so hopefully. I realized I forgot to put, we'll have to at some point put the reference to the Harvard article on the VUCA slide.
Got it. Okay. Maybe you could just say it or for now, but let me know how to reference that and I can.
Yeah. I don't have it with me, but we'll do that next week.
Okay.
Well, I think it's a good moment for me to just take the quick opportunity to say thank you, gentlemen, for the opportunity to be in partnership with you to share this information. I have found that each of you are pretty incredible and easy to work with. And it just makes this tool even more excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We're really excited about this. I'm sorry we didn't get more people, but I'm excited about the partnership in general, and I see a lot of potential here. So,
Definitely no apologies. Think about how many people this is going to reach, starting with one leader who will then be able to use this.
It's
and the
3:30.
implications of that for students. So that's what I think about. That's most important. Trying to figure out how to turn my sound off because that's going to not. You guys just heard the time, right?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, I think it's like a built-in Mac thing. I've never been able to figure it. Brian, if you figure that out for me, you are the man with a plan.
I have some people I can ask. I'm not a Mac guy myself, but I'm sure we could figure it out. So we're at 3:30. We have about 4 people in the waiting room right now, and people always trickle in. But because it's 3:30, I'm going to go ahead and admit people and let everyone know that we're going to get started here.
Want to switch the slide over too?
That would be smart. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brian Badolf-Krentar, and I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for School Sims, and I'd like to introduce our CEO and founder, Ken Spiro.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are delighted to have you with us today for our webinar on navigating the politics of equity-based budgeting. On behalf of School Sims, again, I'd like to welcome you, especially this time of year where we are quite certain quite busy, but we look to have a wonderful session with you. Before I introduce our guest presenter, I wanted to just point out in the title of this webinar where we're talking about the equity-based budgeting, we're actually speaking to two what I think would be considered two of the biggest challenges that administrators face in schools. On the one hand, there's equity, which we all know is one that requires significant judgment and constant vigilance around. And at the same time, budgeting. The opportunities, the challenges of budgeting are two that are incredibly complicated. And there's an interesting model that was written about, highlighted in a 2014, I believe, HBR. We can send out the specific reference. And they referred to challenges such as this as VUCA. And this means volatility, uncertainty, ambiguity, and complexity. And when I came across that, first thing I thought of was the school administrator, because that's the job, right? Those are the things that we're dealing with. These represent the different challenges that we have. And in fact, when we're dealing with navigating the politics, if you will, so the third aspect of the challenge, you can actually probably put different stakeholders in each of the different boxes, the volatile ones, the uncertain ones, the ambiguous ones, the complex ones. So in addition to the challenges themselves being difficult, we also have the challenge of the stakeholders that we need to manage. And so decision-making in this context is extremely difficult, and getting it right, forget about it. We just have to do the best we can. And the only way we can do that is to practice, and hopefully you will have an opportunity to enjoy this simulation, which in essence is safe practice, safe experience. And at this point, I would like to introduce our guest speaker, who is our partner, Dr. Patrese Mason, who has worked in administrator roles from pre-K to college readiness and has served beside superintendents in rural, urban, and suburban school districts. She is a CEO, consultant, coach, and international speaker, and it is my pleasure to introduce her to you and to have her lead us in this webinar. Patrese.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today and see everybody. Today is a pretty amazing day because we have shown up for not only ourselves, but we've shown up to be of service to others. And I think that's excellent. I just want to encourage you to take a moment right now and to get comfortable. Get comfortable. I'm comfortable. In fact, I'm surrounded by a few of my favorite items, and I hope that you are as well. You know, I've got my water beside me. I have a favorite item here. I hail from the great state of South Carolina, the Myrtle Beach area. As a matter of fact, I've got one of my favorite shells here. And speaking of which, if you could just go ahead now and take a quick moment and type in the chat box, where are you from? What do you do? We're going to enjoy the next moments together as we're learning. This tool of School Sims is a phenomenal tool that I have the opportunity to incorporate in the work that I do with superintendents, both in this nation and abroad. And it is a tool that you're able to use in a non-threatening way so that you can minimize risk in your own district, to minimize implications that are related to legal issues, staffing issues, student stakeholders, board members. So let's go ahead and just to cap onto what Ken has shared. Thank you so much for that, Ken, for the opportunity to be here today and to be in partnership with you. And thank you for the introduction. Yes, I have had the opportunity to work with school districts from rural, urban, suburban, pre-K to college readiness, as he said. I think that for me, one of the most profound things is that my journey actually began, as a homeless teen, and it was education that shifted and changed the trajectory of my life. And that's why I'm very passionate today. And I'm passionate in general about supporting other leaders. And my work has involved really making sure that it results in three main areas, and that's the decreased turnover rate amongst staff, increased student achievement, as well as supporting the development of current leaders and aspiring leaders. But enough about me. This is about you all. We're getting ready to dive deep into, again, the most phenomenal tool that I have had the opportunity and still do to incorporate with the work that I do. So, if you are a professor at a university, if you're an educational leader, if you're a principal or superintendent, no matter who you are, trust me, this tool can certainly be of support to you so that you can dive deep into conversations, reflections about decision-making so that it can be a non-threatening time to talk before the real deal happens. All right, here goes. Let's get started. Okay, so this School Sims is navigating the politics of equity-based budgeting. And we know whether it be CARES Act or other types of funding due to the pandemic, and sometimes just in general, we know that there are fundings that have been made available to whether it be a university or school district or various educational agencies. And the question often comes about, what do we do and how do we go about making sure we have equity-based budgeting decisions? And today, that is what we're going to present to you. All right. All right, here we go.
And a traditionally well-regarded district that is experiencing significant population shifts with a host of changing needs. Your challenge is to work with your cabinet the school board, and a variety of stakeholders to develop a budget that will provide funding in an equitable manner. This will call for a different process than used in the past. It is a significant change that must be managed.
All right, let's pause right there because that also gave the opportunity for some of our leaders that are here today to tell me where they're hailing from. And I see Pennsylvania, I see Ohio, I'm seeing New York, I am seeing that we got South Dakota. We have a variety of folk. It's wonderful that we are able to take the opportunity to come together today, regardless of what state or nation you're in. This is an international webinar. So what you've already discovered so far, probably just in this quick moment, is that this school Sims, we can't go back in time. We're not going to go back because in real life, when something happens, if we're faced with a crisis, or if we have to dive out without equity-based budgeting, once it's done, it's done. We can't reel it back in. So that's how School Sims is set up. Again, a very non-threatening, no risk way. So let's pretend, and that's what we're doing in many ways, although we really have to, sort through the fact that this is our everyday life, is that, how might you see yourself as a leader as it relates to utilizing the conversations that we're going to be having today, okay? Think about who it is that you're serving. Who do you have the pleasure of working with every day? Are you a superintendent that's working with your board members, your principals? Are you a university professor? And then we're going to continue on and really get going with this School Sims. Let's see what happens, okay?
Click on the diamond-shaped desktop icon toward the bottom of the screen to access detailed background information in your file cabinet. It will remain available throughout the simulation. While you recognize that you were hired to execute the board's vision for the district, you also bring your own values and perspective to discussions of how to best meet present and future needs. As you look ahead to the budgeting process, you recognize the need to distribute resources equitably. Does that mean lower performing schools should get the same resources as high performing schools? Or should they get more to support efforts at reducing the gap, bringing performance up and boosting average performance? The performance of Black and Latino students is of concern. You also see a growing influx of emergent bilinguals and consider that the earlier they have access to the targeted supports they need, including adequate and rigorous literacy dual language programs, the better equipped they would be to achieve success in their learning experiences. As you lead the strategic dialogue about priorities, Deputy Superintendent Ashish Kumar is leading the effort to move to a student-focused budgeting process. As you move through the process of establishing a common vision among stakeholders and making it achievable through the budgeting process, you'll interact with various characters who seek to gain or limit influence. You'll begin meeting them as you start the simulation. Good luck.
Now let's pause right there. So again, no matter who you are and what role you play, as a leader, we know that we have a variety of stakeholders. And when we have budgeting, when we have a number of financial funds that we have to dive out, we have to consider our strategic plan. We have to consider the voice of those individuals. So right now, what the School Sims is able to present to you in the simulation is, in this case, some of those individuals. Let's listen in to see what they're going to say.
The summer has gone by quickly. You're in your office and working through your inbox, cleaning out some of the clutter, when you get several new emails. You never know who will walk into your office next, so you grab this time to catch up a bit. Email from board chair. Just wanted to send you a quick note to say I'm looking forward to another great year. As always, there are plenty of challenges ahead, but I'm glad we've developed a solid working relationship over these past few years to see us through the rough patches. One major challenge I see ahead of us is to work through the budget process in a way that brings the board together with your staff in harmonizing a financial plan that will serve the needs of the district and reflect the priorities of our school communities. Email from Deputy Superintendent for Operations. When you have a chance, I'd like to set up some time for us to review our budgeting process for the year, taking a look at the calendar and trying to get ahead of the curve. Let me know when you might have some time. Sooner is better than later. Email from Principal. Dear Superintendent, I am writing to express my heightened sense of urgency to secure appropriate resources for the students in my school. We will see an even greater influx of emergent bilingual students. We will require additional resources, which have, frankly, been inadequate in the past. I recognize that this email circumvents the chain of command, but it represents me pulling the alarm, so to speak. I look forward to following the budget process to see how this issue is addressed.
Okay. Continue.
You are treated to a quick visit by Carl Mazer, the president of Copeland Parents United, a coalition of parents from around the district.
As the year gets underway, I'd like to ask that our organization be included in the budgeting process. I speak for many of our members who feel excluded from the discussions and feel they only have an opportunity for input when it really seemed too late to have any impact. While I'm here, can I get on your schedule to talk details?
Right, so let's think about it right now. Can you just put in the chat, who are a few of the stakeholders that you have to keep in mind while you're serving in your role? Because we recognize certainly there's so many layers. Type in the chat, who are some of those that you serve, because we don't all have here superintendents, we've got principals, professors. Who are some of those stakeholders that you have to serve while we continue to the next one? All right, we're going to go to the next slide.
You're interrupted by your admin saying that the chief of police is here for an unscheduled visit. This is rather uncommon for the chief to arrive unannounced, so you check your schedule and see that you can accommodate a brief conversation. Your admin shows the chief into your office.
I'm hearing that many of the district schools are not feeling secure enough, especially given some of the incidents last year. I know there are people who want to see more metal detectors in all the upper schools. I don't doubt you get some community pressure to do just that. The detectors that are currently installed have increased the sense of security in those schools that have them. I am happy to discuss security issues anytime.
All right, let's go ahead.
After the chief leaves, you reflect on his message and make a note to speak to Ashish about it when you connect with him on scheduling time to discuss the budgeting process. You forward the principal's email to the assistant superintendent for equity and access, as well as the chief school improvement officer, asking for their input. Both reply confirming the anticipated increase in emergent bilingual students, as well as acknowledging this area has been chronically underfunded. You make a note to call Carl Mazer to speak about the concerns he is hearing from within Copeland Parents United. You decide to begin getting ready for a public meeting with the Board of Education in mid-August to establish interests and priorities in preparation for the budgeting process. Which of the following will you do first to prepare for the meeting? The little blue dots on the buttons below indicate more information is available. Once you've chosen an option for your response, click the Continue button to advance.
This is one of the aspects of school sims that I personally love to utilize, and it would be great in preparing aspiring leaders, teachers, the development of others, because you really now get to get deep into conversation. Okay, everybody, I want you to take a look at each of these areas. Before us, we have 5 different ones. What would you say is the most important one? Okay, and I actually would like to have us go into a meeting group of 2, and I want you to discuss in just a moment why Which one is it that you would choose and why? So take a look real good right now, and we're going to expound a bit on what they each mean first. Okay, so we have contact each board member and ask them to share their interest and priorities with you in advance. Share your interest and priorities with each board member in advance of the meeting. Ask your team to formally share their priorities with you via email. The fourth one says, review minutes and materials from last year's budget meetings and schedule time for discussion and pre-planning with the board leadership and chair of the finance committee to establish process. Now, this is actually designed to be a poll. But I wonder if we can go into a meeting group now of 2 to discuss this.
Sure, I'll set those up for you now, Patrese.
All right, thank you. Meanwhile, I want you to go ahead, everybody, leaders that are on the line, I want you to start thinking about, which one would you select and why? And, be able to provide good information, evidence as to your logic behind that, okay? And so as soon as we get that set up, we are going to have that discussion in our meeting group. And when we get into the meeting group, we're going to have 3 minutes to discuss which one you would select and why. Okay? Okay. Hopefully by now everybody has joined the meeting group.
So Patrese, I think most people have. Just so you know, I only created one group due to the number of people on the line. So you're welcome to just join group 1 if you want to listen in. It's up to you whether you want to listen in or not. Patrice, I think you may be muted.
All right, so I hope that the breakout sessions was a delight to you. I wanted to have that happen so that you can know that this school Sims tool, of it being a poll, is really versatile. You could choose when you're working to develop your leaders, or when you're working with developing the students, or just having the deep discussions around whether it be navigating the politics of equity-based budgeting or a plethora of the other SIMs that are available. You can launch the poll, or you can have the discussion and see if would the discussion have changed the participant's mind or not. There's so many ways to do that. Or they can go ahead and launch the poll, and they can decide and discuss why did they choose it, why didn't they choose the others, and so forth. Okay, let's go on.
Is there an option you'd like me to choose here?
Yeah, actually, let's go ahead and we're going to select the first one. Contact each board member and ask them to share their interests and priorities with you in advance.
What factors did you consider in choosing your top priority? What risks may have been involved in choosing something else instead? Write your response below. It will be retrieved at the end of the simulation.
All right, so I had a chance to pop in one of the breakouts and heard some really good feedback. Specifically, I can recall you, Suzanne, and others sharing. And I wonder if you all could go ahead right now and just in the question box option, if you can write down what your response would be in this situation, what would it be? And then Brian is going to be kind enough to copy and paste a few of those. Okay, go ahead now, if you would for me, please, and start gathering your responses. Okay. So when you think about the scenario, what factors did you consider when you chose your top priority? Okay. All right, while others are sharing their response in the box, the first one we have is that my first thought was to listen to the ideas of board members because they are ultimately the decision makers. Yes, I can understand. And as you all are still having the opportunity to type in, I think about when I had the chance to work throughout my dissertation and study superintendents, I can recall some research on how if we're not really sometimes very much in tune with those decision makers, i.e. board members, usually that is the contributing factor for decreased numbers of superintendents, and that is turnover rate. So I can understand the individual that chose to say that because we know that can lead to some other potential implications. Someone else just said first consideration was to plan for the process of budgeting. All right, and we see that another person says, I was most interested in listening to my board members to get a sense of their thinking before going public with my ideas and desires. I can tell from these responses, we have some highly skilled and well-experienced individuals. Yes, all right, let's move forward.
Some of the board members welcome your interest, while a few that haven't really warmed to you are dismissive. I'm saving it for the meeting. You will be there, won't you? You get a sense of where there is resistance and where there is support within the board. This allows you to prepare a bit more strategically. You also recognize you'll need to work with Ashish to design a few more sessions with the board, discussing the structure to be used in building an equity-based budget.
All right.
Email from Alina Marquez. I wanted to re-emphasize that every day I see how critical elementary literacy can be as a foundation, how predictive it is of future success. Every day I see more opportunities for us to address it. I'll say it over and over. Elementary literacy should be our top priority. Okay. Email from Pat Branch. I support our investments in elementary literacy and want to be sure we recognize the expanded resources needed for those efforts. Let's anticipate all that goes along with a focus on elementary literacy program to maximize success. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, if you're a leader out there and you're listening and you're a part of this right now, and you know that you have at some point faced the complexity of what it is we're discussing right now. Here today, we're talking about the navigating the politics of equity-based budgeting. So whether it be as it relates to equity and budgeting, or maybe another matter, if it has been a complex issue and you've had the same hat on where you're listening to various stakeholders and then going back to your strategic plan and having to make the decision, just type right now, just in your chat, just say, that's me, that's me, that's me. I get it. I know for me, when I was building principal and working alongside various superintendents, this rings true. And I could say that's me. So just chat in the box, type right there and just say, yes, I can relate. And just say, that's me, that's me. I understand these complex issues, okay? Does anybody relate? If you do, anybody just type there that, yes, that's me. And by saying that's me, you're simply saying that you can relate to this simulation. Okay, let's move on.
In addition to the regular business items from the board meeting, the minutes reflect several items of strong interest: school security, improvements to properties, career pathways, expanded AP class enrollment, improving elementary literacy. Improving elementary literacy has been a passionate cause for Elena Marquez, Assistant Superintendent for Equity and Access, who was glad to see it brought up in the first public board meeting. In your cabinet meeting, however, Pat Branch, Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, notes that she considered the scope of that initiative to be much larger than previously anticipated. Disagreement among these two is frequent and no surprise, but this topic gives rise to an uncharacteristically heated exchange.
We need to have urgency around elementary literacy, particularly in the earlier grades. If kids aren't reading at grade level by the end of third grade, their chances of dropping out increase. Their chances of graduating go down, and their chances of going to jail become higher. They are pretty much doomed. Nothing is more important than raising literacy levels in the earlier grades.
No one cares more about literacy than I do. But the fact is that we've got a lot of competing demands. We've got issues with math. We've got issues with students not having access to higher level courses in high school. We need culturally responsive material that we'll need to train the teachers on. I agree, elementary literacy is important, but it's not the only thing.
I'm not saying it's the only thing we need. I'm saying it's the most important thing.
It will be a huge undertaking, and we don't know that we're going to get the support for the board for the kind of investment that we need to make, particularly given the other needs that we have.
What will you do now?
All right, so let's take a look. What would you do now? Would you ask for every program to zero base their budget? Would you ask for an ROI analysis or program evaluation to determine which programs are working? Or perhaps you would have conversations with various external interest groups to understand their issues and priorities. Or have conversations with principals, teachers, union representatives, etc., to gauge their priority. Now, what I really want to do here now, again, to demonstrate how phenomenal you can really utilize this in creating conversations and introspection, is to choose which one now. And then I want you to, we're going to actually talk about it. So I want you to launch the poll, Brian. Okay. So keeping in mind what those responses were, which option might you choose? And that is, what would you do now? Out of those four, what would you do now? Okay. And make the selection. Give you a moment to do that. Okay. 1, 2, 3, or 4. Which option would you choose? Okay, and then once you've done that, submit it. Okay.
So right now, Patrice, we have about an 80-20 split between option 4 and option 2.
Okay. All right. Okay. Could I have the poll results show up, Brian?
I believe you can. Hopefully you see those now.
Perfect. Perfect. All right, everybody. So I would like to ask, if you did not choose option 1, would you be brave enough to chat that you will share your answer? Why? We want to hear from you right now. Why didn't you choose answer 1, option 2, option 1, 3, or the other options that is? That's what we want to hear. Would you chime in and tell us, why did you not choose the other option? Okay. Is there a brave soul that's willing? You know, we're all leaders. We're here to learn. Who's willing to share why they didn't select one of the other options? Okay. Well, just as a note, sometimes what's really phenomenal, and I know I keep saying all these great tools about school systems, but it truly, truly is that you know, oftentimes we ask the question, why would you choose this answer? But sometimes it's equally fantastic to ask, why didn't you choose an answer? Because it causes another level of thinking, okay?
We do have one response, Patrice.
Okay, great.
So as to why I believe number 1 was not chosen, the response was zero-based budgeting failed for years for us because folks continued to build in exactly what they had was exactly what they needed when what we were doing wasn't working for kids.
Yeah, yeah, powerful, powerful. Okay, so we have there option 2, 14% said went with that, and then the majority of individuals went with option 4. Could someone share why they felt strongly enough about option 4 to go with that one versus the other 3? And I wonder if we would love to unmute you so we could actually hear from you. If you're willing to share, why did you go with option 4?
Dr. Mason, I'll take a crack at that. So first, why I did not choose option 3, it just seemed a little vague. External interest groups. I mean, what is that? Is that the Rotary Club? Is that the city council? You know, if it's not if you don't have a targeted audience that you're going to ask questions about, you probably don't have time as a school leader to do that. However, I thought, option 4 did the exact opposite, have conversations with principals, teachers, union reps to gauge their priorities. Any good leader going through the budgeting process needs to understand how important it is to listen without interruption, take notes, and really truly figure out what those important stakeholders believe will work for the students of the school.
Excellent insight. Thank you so much, Dr. DeYoung, for sharing that. The fact is, I think that most of us might agree. And if you agree with this, just please type in "I agree" to know that we're in this together, that we're faced with complex issues. This is a complex matter to navigate through the various politics of equity-based budgeting. We are faced with complex issues that are involved with cyberspace, issues with special education, board member an array of stakeholders and what they want us to do. If you agree, and I see Sharon, Sharon just said, I agree. I agree with you as well, Sharon. Does anyone else agree? We are faced with a number of issues. So right now, I want to make sure that I make available to you. Hang in there to the end. I mean, this is phenomenal information. And for those that are able to continue to the end of this School Sims webinar, I, in partnership with them, am going to make available information that helps you with 7 different complex issues that you most likely are faced. These are trends and data and studies and things that I have noticed firsthand, both as a school leader, as an administrator, as a consultant, as a speaker, as a coach. And there are 7 complex issues, and I want to make available to you a very special gift, really, because you know what, we've been through some tough times, and it's just nice to be able to make that available. Okay, so I'll tell you about that in the end. Let's move on and let's see what happens next.
A neighboring district is reporting 3 new cases of measles, enough to qualify as an outbreak. You've already heard that one of the students had been granted a vaccination exemption, which is now the subject of intense debate.
Okay, and if I could, you know, right here, when we talk about measles, we know that what we've been living in, it has been COVID-19. I'm very happy to know that School Sims they're very much on top of the trends that are happening. So I would not at all be shocked that they're able to present to you in a matter of or limited time on the pandemic. But just imagine how helpful it would have been as a leader to have that discussion with your individuals about what it would have looked like for a pandemic in a non-threatening and safe way, before the risk, before the implications, before the legality, whatever it may have been. So, you know, this is what we're doing today. We're talking about what could happen, and we're doing it where we can, you know, before there's an actual problem. And by the way, I see that Aaron also earlier said that he agrees. I agree with you as well, Aaron, that we're faced with complex issues. Okay, let's continue.
Principals seek more support for student mental health and behavioral issues. Teachers ask for more PD and less testing. Principals also note that personalized learning is broadly seen as too much work. You speak with Ashish about the budgeting process and the need to continue the change effort with the board.
I'm getting the sense that as we move through the budgeting process, we have to figure out the best way to involve the board. I want to do all we can to ensure that you have their support to get this budget passed. I could use your guidance about how we should involve them throughout the process.
Okay, let's see what happens.
You get a call from a colleague who is now the superintendent at a neighboring district. What would you want to share about or ask about at this point in the budgeting process in order to get their perspective?
Yeah, what would you want to share about or ask about at this point in the budgeting process in order to get their perspective? Chat that in the box for me, please. Just give some indication of what is it that you would want to share or ask about for the budgeting process in this real live time that we're living in. Just take a moment and think about that. What would you want to ask, or what would you want to share when you get that call from the colleague who's now the superintendent at your neighboring district? We've got Amber, we've got Ebony, we've got Brent, we have Mark, we've got Aaron, we have David, Suzanne. We've got a number of leaders here that are able to give their insight. What would you do? Okay. All right. Okay. So Ebony says, let's copy and paste that so everybody can see what Ebony says. Love these questions that you're asking, Ebony. So leader Ebony shares that Question that would be posed is, have you discussed your budget? What are your top priorities this year? What do you think? Someone says as well, I would ask, what advice do you have for me as I lead through our budgeting process? Yes, 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 and yes. If any of us have ever had the opportunity to lead a phenomenal group of individuals, our team, or if we've ever been on a team, we know the power in collaboration, the power of conversation to further arm us in making great decisions. So good questions. Another one I see as a new superintendent, what are the major issues facing your district? Yes, yes, and yes. Yeah, what are those major issues? Okay. Feel free to continue to type those if you think of others. Let's continue on with the next area.
As the year unfolds, you find the level of time commitment you need to make to various constituencies varies. At this point in the year, looking ahead to the equity-based budgeting process, how would you allocate your time?
Yeah, how would you add? I love this question, because what do we all need as leaders? That we cannot get more of. We need more time. We need more time, right? So how do we allocate our time? And let's not forget about our own self-care in time. But right now we have this issue before us in considering our time allocation. Okay, so what is the most most important areas that how you would allocate your time? How would you allocate? How would you do that? Okay. And I say that because it's always the question that's going through our minds as we have to give time. All right, we're going to launch this poll. I just want to make sure we know our options, which is option 1. Would you even split among board, cabinet, and school community? Would you half your time to the board, the other half split between the cabinet and community? Or would you provide half to the cabinet, the other half split between board and community? The final option is half to community and the other half split between board and cabinet. Now, I want you to make a decision and stick with it, right? Why? Because imagine if we're having this conversation with a large group of people and one person stands and they say, hey, I would do number 1. And then it somehow, influences your answer. Well, perhaps it's your answer that helps to give them another lens, right? So always be bold in standing in what it is you feel, because it could help someone else broaden their introspection. All right, go ahead and make your decision and launch it, and we're going to find out the results.
Looks like we have a pretty good split here between option 1 through 3, 1, 2, and 3.
Okay. Pretty good split between options 1, 2, and 3. I would love to hear why. Just curious, for great conversation and maybe further decision making. Someone tell me, why not option 4? Why not option 4? I would agree with you. I would have selected one of those options, 1, 2, or 3. But tell me, why not option 4? Oh, Aaron, by the way, thanks for your previous question that you posed about, as a new superintendent, what are the major issues facing your district? Great. Okay, someone tell me, let's share and discuss why not option 4. Just jump in there, leaders. Just jump in there. Why not option 4? I've heard from Ebony. Awesome. Heard from Aaron. Heard from David. Heard from, I think, do we have another David? Okay, someone else share. All right, let's see what, so let's take a look. Suzanne says, who's hailing from Syracuse. Hope the weather is pretty good there. She says that community are not typically educators. Ah, all right. So this is the understanding or logic behind not having chosen option 4 is that for her, she says community are not typically educators. I might agree with you. I might agree. Okay, great, great, great. All right, let's see next what's happening.
There is one above that too, Patrese, if you wanted to look at that.
Oh, and we have another one. Thank you so much, Ebony, who says to many folks in the community, and they all want something without knowing all of the rules and regulations about what we can and cannot do. You know what, Ebony? Yeah, well said. That means, yes, this is true. You know, certainly we want to hear all voices and we want to do it in a very authentic way. And I think that poses a great question. How might we further inform them? So thank you so much for sharing. Let's move on. And we're going to, thank you so much. We're going to choose the first one.
How will you ensure you are appropriately allocating your time on the priorities you have made for the year?
Okay. How will you ensure?
Email from principal. Dear Superintendent, as I have not gotten a response to my earlier message, I am writing to again express my heightened sense of urgency to secure appropriate resources for the students in my school. We are seeing an even greater influx of emergent bilingual students, which require additional resources that I expect will be inadequate as in the past.
Just make a note as the language that school sims use, it's a progressive, non-deficient, i.e. emergent bilingual resources. All right, let's see what happens next.
Email from board member Serrano. I recognize that it can be difficult to keep sight of our top priorities amid the district's shifting landscape of needs. I'd like to speak with you soon about expanding AP enrollment being a priority that we stay focused on. I'll stop by next time I'm in the building.
Okay.
The local paper runs a story recapping security failures within the district from the past 2 years. An op-ed piece questions what the district is doing to keep students and teachers safe. David Ochoa calls that evening to make sure you are aware of the story in the paper about security. He shares his frustration.
I'm sorry to disturb you, but I wanted to make sure you were aware of the story in the local news media about school security. I imagine that the board will be pressured by the community and some special interest groups to push the district to invest significant resources in this issue. I'll let you go, but from my perspective, there are much more pressing issues.
All right.
After the story appears, you are called by the reporter who asks for your comment. What is your course of action?
What is your course of action? Thought leaders, school leaders, professors. Would it be option 1, write an op-ed that puts the data into the public domain and articulates your plans? Write a memo to the board delineating all of that you've done to address safety and security during your tenure? Or write a letter to parents, community, delineating all that you've done and all you intend to do regarding safety? Or perhaps would it be hold a community forum on school safety? What would your course of action be? Okay, select one and hold to it for this poll. Let's launch the poll. Okay.
So it looks like a pretty big consensus on option 3 here, Patrese.
3. All right. Let's see what percentage we have. Whoa. Everybody chose option 4. Let's take another look at what it says. It says you would write a letter or parents community, delineating all of that you've done and all you intend to do regarding safety. Is it not phenomenal that we would all choose option 4? You know, if we were, if time had afforded us and we're in a live setting, you're with your organization, your team, it would be a really wonderful time to pause and to dive deeply as to why not the other options. Since everybody chose option 3, why not the other options? And so you're able to pause your Sims and have that conversation about how the decision making came about. All right, let's move on.
So Patrese, just in terms of time, we're getting close to an hour here. So maybe we can get to the next decision point and turn it back over to Ken.
Okay.
2 of the supervisors on the county board announced they will not be running for re-election, opening up 2 seats for new candidates. The board is ultimately responsible for approving the budget for the school district. After your letter went out, your inbox became flooded with stories about security issues. Of course, there was also the usual microanalysis of your letter on the usual social media sites. The chief of police stops by unannounced to share more of his perspective on metal detectors and also offers an opportunity to buy in on a regional level at a discounted price.
I want to let you know that if you like more metal detectors as part of your safety security plan, you might save the district some money by going in on a bigger buy at the regional level.
And we're going to watch one more.
Email from board finance chair. Superintendent, with all the threats out there right now, we have a responsibility. We need to defend ourselves and defend those who can't defend themselves, our kids. I say we should get the equipment we need and budget the cost and effort to maintain security with metal detectors beyond that of just the units. The support resources are enormous, but whatever it takes, we need to make it happen. And Toronto stops by and tells you she is adamant that the budget process should steer resources towards teaching and learning, making personalized learning work, and increasing BPL. She maintains that the security failures are more perceived and playing up to people's fears than actual security concerns.
Right here, yes, we are going to pause. It's an excellent place to pause in our Sims. And you can imagine there is more to this, but imagine being able to utilize this again in a non-threatening way that you're able to minimize and mitigate risk, legality risk, staffing issues to increase and better improve current leaders, aspiring leaders, and so much more. Because again, this is one of several that I personally absolutely find to be a powerful tool. Okay, so thank you so much. I'm going to, at this time, I'm going to turn this over to Ken.
Thank you so much, Patrese, and thank you for that facilitation. We'll come back to you in a minute so you can share a little bit more about that offer that you had made in terms of the resource that you will share with participants. But one of the things that we find that, again, we're preaching to the choir, obviously, but the challenge of administration is obviously very, very complicated. As we've seen, this is one of the difficult manifestations of the job. And in fact, it is being demonstrated more fully, both in terms of how leaders need to be developed because they don't have the time to spend actually in formal preparation. But if you actually go to the next slide, Brian, we're actually seeing this manifest more fully in people leaving the job because they're not prepared, because they're totally reliant on gathering information on their own. Oftentimes, this results in leadership churn. And the kinds of things that we want to do to try and avoid the churn to help organizations to do this is to both prepare leaders so that the stress levels, the decision-making, the consequences of the decisions can be reduced, and also the stress levels can be reduced. Because if we have an opportunity, as you've seen with this modality, the opportunity for peer-to-peer organic conversation, which is, because we're social animals as human beings, we can be de-stressed by best being able to share with others, as we know from many of the social sciences and our own experiences. And so the opportunity to engage in this kind of activity can both be developmental, so the better decisions happen in the buildings, can improve the climate, which, as we've seen from the Wallace research, can actually help with student achievement, and fundamentally reduce our costs, because churn can be extremely expensive relative to both the cost to replace, but also the lifetime costs of underdeveloping our students. Because if they're unable to enter into the workforce, that is going to affect local economies. That has the cascading effects are dramatic. And the opportunity to do this kind of simple activity where it's, again, has so many different ways of facilitating improvement in your schools can obviously be very powerful. If we flip to the next slide. The beauty of the simulations is that, given that they're focused on experiences, that they can be appreciated at any level, whether you're pre-service, whether you're in service, whether you're post-service, or advancing into the next level of service. The simulations can be applied equally because you can play them at your level. And so whether you're a teacher leader thinking about going into leadership, whether you are an AP thinking about becoming a principal or wanting to become a principal, or going into central office and up to superintendent, this kind of modality can support any of those activities throughout. Next slide. And we've done some, and you can see this on our website at schoolsims.com. You can see how we've aligned the Sims both to standards in terms of both the PSAL standards as well as the NELP standards, because the thing about experience, when we know that experience is the best teacher, is that it doesn't happen in standardized buckets, right? We can look at leadership through a series of standards, but life never presents as a series of standards. They happen in combination. They happen sometimes even trading off each other. And so being able to experience things through the lens of the standards are important to know, but it's also important to experience how they manifest together. And so the opportunity to look at different kinds of problems of practice as they are manifestations of leadership standards is something that can really enhance one's ability to both aspire to the job, but also become better at the job. And with that, I think I'm going to turn it back over to Patrese. And we thank you for your participation at this stage. Look forward to look for the recording that will be coming out shortly, and also for future webinars that we will be sharing with you.
Yeah, thank you, Ken. And as it relates to social science and the research that is the underpinning of so much that School Sims provide, this is what attracted me to the partnership. I mentioned earlier that I found myself as a homeless teen quite early in my teenage life, and found that it was great leaders like that are on the line today. I'm looking at all those that are Suzanne and Aaron and Mark and Brent, Ebony, and others that are on the webinar today that really paused to pour into me. And I was able to, as a kid who then became a substitute and eventually an administrator, building principal, and working alongside superintendents and studying them, I saw these complex issues. And that's why today I want to make sure that I honor my word and what I said earlier. Stay on the line. If you text me, go ahead and send a text right now. Simple, easy, 614-477-0038. I want to share with you how, as a social scientist says, how some of that lived experience has afforded me the opportunity to get phenomenal insight that helps districts, universities, educational leaders. And some of those 7 are right here before us. And that would be, on the scheduled call, I'll ask you some questions to gain an expert consultation. And it'll be how to exceed on one or more of your strategic plan goals. If that's you, text me. I can support you in that, hands down. Been there, done that, can do that. Secondly, how to maximize the tool of School Sims to further develop your team. Phenomenal, powerful tool in whether, again, as Ken said, pre-service or not, current leader, aspiring leader, can show you how we can develop that leader to minimize staffing issue, to save tons of thousands of dollars for your district, to grow your own. How to win with complex and pervasive issues in your district or building. How to decrease staff turnover, increase parent engagement, and or change culture and climate. Okay, not telling you something I read about, didn't do, telling you about something I've walked the walk, did it, and can have the conversation about what is it that you're experiencing. Last three are how to implement a 5-week proprietary system to drastically improve your leadership and team development. How to minimize funding to close achievement gap while supporting your SEL and trauma-informed practices. And then how to build a strong team with sustainable outcomes, or perhaps you have another educational issue that is, you might feel is germane to you, and wondering how do you gain some insight and have a strategic conversation about that. Okay. Again, you can feel free to text now. Someone, either myself or someone from my team will have that conversation. 614-477-0038. I think what I'll also do too, for your pleasure, I will type it now in the chat box. And I'm going to give you my email, which is super simple because guess what? It is my name. Easy breezy. Okay. I, as a leader, know what it feels like to sometimes feel as though I'm on the island alone, but had a heart to serve, had a passion and a persistence to make change happen. And you don't have to do it alone. Whatever your pervasive issue, it may not be that you're in a turnaround mode. It may be that you want to be blue ribbon, whatever it is. So let's have the conversation, and hats off to each of you that showed up today. For yourself and for others. And remember, whatever you do, make sure you take care of yourself too. Hey, get some of your favorite items. Hey, I got my seashell, got my favorite peppermint tea here, and School Sims, powerful tool. Thank you so much. And that's it for me.
Thank you very much, Patrese, and thank you everyone else for joining. I know this is a very busy time of year for everyone, so thank you so much. We'll be sending out the recording. You should be getting it tomorrow. It'll be on our website under our webinar section. But once again, thank you everyone for attending, and have a great evening.
Have a great evening.